Good morning everyone, kapwa ka-Pilipino, magbasa na tayo ng ating history book. History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Today is 19 February 2023. History of the Filipino People, Part 4, the American Period. Topic number 21 na tayo, Results of the American Occupation. Nandito tayo sa paragraph Trade, Commerce, and Industry. Basa. Trade, commerce, and industry. The economic development of the Philippines under the United States may be attributed to the free trade relations that the Americans imposed upon the country. As early as 1902, a reduction of 25% was allowed on goods coming from the Philippines. Nevertheless, the American Congress consistently refused to admit Philippine products into the United States free of duty. It was not until 1909, when the American Congress passed the Piney-Aldrich Tariff Act, that partial free trade relations between the Philippines and the United States were established. Under this act, all Philippine exports except rice were allowed to enter American markets free of duty within certain quota limits. On the other hand, American exports to the Philippines were unlimited and duty-free. To correct the inequality in the law, the American Congress passed the Simmons-Underwood Tariff Act in 1913, which abolished the quota limitations on Philippine export products like hemp, sugar, and tobacco. The results of these free trade relations with the United States was the Philippine foreign trade rose to unheard of proportions. Statistics show that from 1900 to 1909, before the Piney-Aldrich Tariff Act was passed, the average annual export of the Philippines amounted to 60.9 million pesos. This figure increased to 94.7 millions in 1910 to 1914. To 177.3 millions in 1914-1918, to 234.7 millions in 1919 to 1924, to 297.9 millions in 1925 to 1930, and decreased to 213.2 millions in 1930 to 1935. The reason for the decrease in 1930 to 1935 was the worldwide economic depression. Except during the period of the First World War, 1914 to 1918, the Philippines always had a favorable balance of trade. Domestic trade likewise developed. In 1917, the gross merchant sales was 400,197,966 pesos, but in 1935 it rose to 631,614,000 pesos. Comparing the growth of Philippine foreign and domestic trade, the latter was slow, for the internal trade of the country was mostly in the hands of aliens. At the time of the inauguration of the Commonwealth, the Chinese controlled 50% of the domestic trade, the Filipinos 25%, the Japanese 20%, and other nationalities 5%. The development of Philippine domestic trade under the Americans was therefore not actually a boon to the Filipinos, who had to play second fiddle to the aliens. In industry, the Philippines developed in the sense that factories such as textile and cigarette factories multiplied. Sawmills, coconut oil mills, cordage factories, fishing and fish canning, alcohol distilleries, and sugar centrals were established beyond the wildest dreams of the Filipinos during the Spanish period. Mining, one of the most important industries, became the backbone of Philippine economy. In 1929, the gold mining industry produced 6,740,781 worth of gold. This figure soared to 31,979,030 in 1935. Ulitin ko guys ha. This figure soared to 31,979,030 pesos in 1935. Household industries increased their capital investment from 16,500,000 in 1918 to almost 50 million in 1935. The economic prosperity that followed Philippine-American free trade relations was deceptive. While it improved the standard of living, it was nevertheless artificial. Our economic prosperity was dependent on a relation that was physically unsound. Owing to the free-trade relations, most of the Philippine export went to American markets. Other foreign markets were neglected so that the closure of American ports to unusable Philippine export resulted in economic dislocation. It was for this reason that earlier Speaker Sergio Osmeña and Resident Commissioner Manuel L. Quezon opposed free trade relations, for it was their belief that Philippine dependence on the American markets would, in the long run, endanger the political independence of the country. The unwisdom of such an arrangement, that is, the free trade relations between the Philippines and the United States, was shown up when restrictions on the exportation of Philippine sugar, tobacco, hemp, and coconut were provided in the Tidings-McDuffie Independence Act of 1934. These restrictions worked havoc on Philippine economy, for the surplus products that could no longer enter the American markets free of duty had a difficult time finding other foreign markets. The overall effect of the Philippine-American free trade relations was therefore the placing of Philippine economy at the mercy of the Americans. Transportation and communication. Progress in health and welfare and in trade, commerce, and industry was paralleled by similar progress in transportation and communication. Economic development would be meaningless if the means of transportation and communication are primitive, for commercial and industrial products need to be transported efficiently to various places for marketing purposes. Thus, the development of the country's economy was accompanied by development of means of communication and transportation. Thus, the development of the country's economy was accompanied by the development of means of communication and transportation. This rapid development is shown by a comparative study. At the end of the Spanish period, the Philippines had less than 1,000 miles of road. By 1935, the mileage increased to 12,912.12. Bridges and culverts numbered 2,600 in 1898. This number rose to 8,100 in 1935. The means of transportation vastly improved, for while the ancient folk carts, carretelas, and calisas existed, cars, trucks, and railway cars speeded up the means of transportation. In 1903, there were 195 kilometers of railway. In 1903, there was 195 kilometers of railway. In 1935, the number increased to 1,395 kilometers. This development in railroad transportation was preceded by the government's acquisition of the Manila-Dagupan Railway Company, which became the Manila Railroad Company. The government extended the railroad lines to the north and south of Luzon, thereby bringing in far-flung provinces near Manila the political, cultural, and commercial center. Water transportation, too, was developed to connect the islands of the south with the provinces of Luzon. Very little inter-island shipping existed during the Spanish period, for the Spanish colonial officials were more interested in hanging about Manila than in developing the provinces economically. The inter-island shipping during those days was limited to sailboats, bangkas, cascos, and praos. Certainly not efficient enough to promote inter-island trade and commerce. With the coming of the Americans, inter-island shipping was encouraged. In 1902, the American colonial government opened more than 100 ports of domestic shipping. To protect domestic coast-wise shipping, the Philippine legislature passed a law in 1923 providing that only ships owned locally could engage in inter-island shipping. Progress in communication was notable. Telephone lines were introduced in Manila in 1905 and radio telephone service in 1933. Towns and provincial capitals were linked together by telephones, telegraph lines, and radio. Mail offices throughout the country numbering more than 1,000. Dati guys, yung telegraph, nagagamit ko to before. Yung alam niyo pag emergency. Telegraph lines, pero sulat barok dyan eh. Kasi mahal. Telegraph lines and radio. Mail offices throughout the country numbering more than 1,000 in 1935 handled ordinary mail, telegrams, money, orders, and airmail letters and packages. The American role in the economic development of the Philippines, particularly in the field of transportation and communication, is not exactly altruistic. Doubtless self-interest played a role that, though not obvious, was nevertheless pervading. The improvement and building of roads, railways, and bridges meant importation of American tools, equipment, and materials. Good roads and bridges meant to importation of American trucks and cars. To make these vehicles run, importation of American oil and gasoline was imperative. Truck and automobile spare parts and tires were imported from the United States. Considering that American goods entered Philippine ports duty-free in accordance with the Piney-Aldrich Tariff Act of 1909, it is easy to conclude that the Philippines was one of America's greatest markets in the Orient. The American imperialists of 1898 were therefore justified in their clamor to take the Philippines under the wing of the American Eagle, as the history of the Philippines under the United States eloquently testifies. American altruism was engrafted with profit motive. Bukas na itong guys, individual freedoms. So, lagay natin dito for 20 February 2023. Okay, bye everyone. God bless.